Hi, so today we are going to be working on adding with integers. And so there's going to be a progression that we go through when we're learning about adding with integers. So first, we are going to start with integer chips. So we're going to be using red and yellow integer chips. After that, we are going to be drawing out adding with integers. So we're going to be using our whiteboard markers. And then after that, we are going to be using our number lines. So we're going to be using number lines to help us add with integers. But first, today we're going to focus on just using our integer chips. So you can see that we have two here. We have a red one and a yellow one. So our red integer chip is going to be our positive integers. So whenever you see a red integer chip, you know that is going to be positive. We're also going to have our yellow integer chips as negative. So whenever you see a yellow integer chip, that is going to represent a negative integer. But it's also to keep in mind that our red integer chips, our positive integers, are also going to represent hot. And this is going to be important when we are using our number lines and when you're doing answering the integer questions mentally. And therefore, our yellow integer chips are going to be our cold integers. So red integers or positive integers are going to be hot, and yellow integers or negative integers are going to be cold. So if I started out with a question, if I had 5 plus, I'm just going to change colors, -3. So we're going to try to figure out what is 5 plus -3. And so in order to do this, we're going to start off with our first integer. So we have 5 positives. So that means I'm going to need 5 positives or 5 heats. So we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and our question says we have to add in 3 negatives or 3 colds. So I'm going to add in our 3 colds. So we have 1, 2, 3. So I added in my 3 colds. And so what we do now is we learned in a previous lesson, when we have a positive or a negative integer and a positive integer, when we have 2 of them, or we have them both, they form something called a zero pair. And a zero pair has no value. So its value is 0. So whenever we have a positive or a hot and a negative or a cold, they form a zero pair which has no value or 0 value. So we can see in our question here that we have 5 hots and we have 3 colds. And so one way you can think about this is to help you figure out if your answer is correct or not, is if I have 5 hots and I'm adding in cold. So thinking if you had a pot of soup at home and you started adding in ice cubes, what is going to happen when you add cold to something? Is the temperature going to get warmer or is the temperature going to get colder? So if you have a pot of soup at home and you add in ice cubes, you know that the temperature of that pot is going to get colder. So our answer, if we're thinking this as temperature, 5, we're thinking our temperature is 5. If we add in 3 colds, our temperature is going to get colder. So our answer has to be less than 5. So I can see that I have positives and negatives here. So I can see that these two can form a zero pair. These two can form a zero pair. And and these two can form a zero pair. And since they have no value, we can take them off our board. And now we're left with two positives or two heat. And so I can write that there. So we know that 5 plus -3, or 5 heats plus 3 colds, is going to equal +2. And that makes sense because if we know our temperature starting at 5 and we're adding in colds, so our temperature is going to get colder, our answer has to be less than 5. And we know that 2 is less than 5.